Christ's death was his own act. He offered himself freely and voluntarily. He was a lamb without spot and without blemish. Some abuse the Lord's Supper by treating it as a continual sacrifice of Christ. Those who do so transform the cross into the nature of the Old Testament sacrifices, which could never take away sins. What appears at first glance to be a high view of the Lord's Supper is actually a low view of the finality and sufficiency of Christ's death. Christ offered himself once and for all to purify our conscience from dead works to serve the living God. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 14. Come to the Lord's Supper as David came to the sacrifices, in order to lay hold of Christ by faith. Faith is the empty beggar's hand that receives Christ. You must come to God through Christ's acts of grace, and not through your own works. Christ accomplished his death through the Spirit. Just as he was baptized with the Spirit, performed miracles by the Spirit, and was led by the Spirit, so the Spirit led him as a lamb to the slaughter on the cross. He offered himself to God by the eternal Spirit. As Christ was led by the Spirit, even so as many as are led by the Spirit are the sons of God. The Spirit leads us to Christ, whom he led to the cross, and through him he leads us to God. This is why we must take up the cross and die daily in order to follow Christ. We must be led by the Spirit in a life of holiness in conformity to Christ's holiness. We must be led by the Spirit to suffer for righteousness' sake, even as Christ suffered for us and gave himself once for us, the just for the unjust. Trust in the Spirit to follow the Lamb wherever he goes, even if he calls you to deny yourself by suffering hardship through obeying him in every area of life. Christ offered his sacrificial death to God the Father. The Father here represents the violated honor of the entire Trinity. This raises two questions. First, to whom did Christ offer himself? It is popular to say that he paid the price to Satan, yet Satan is merely the jailer of the offended judge. Christ's death broke the power of the jailer over believers, but he paid the price to the judge and not to the jailer. He offered himself to God. Second, who crucified Christ? Was it the Jews? Was it the Romans? Was it Satan who filled Judas's heart with the evil plan to betray him? It was all of these, yet in different ways. Both Jews and Gentiles took him and killed him by lawless hands. Satan assaulted him with all the malice he was capable of, yet this happened by the predetermined counsel and foreknowledge of God. The cross was simultaneously the greatest act of human and demonic wickedness and the clearest proof of the Father's love. Do not give Satan more credit than he deserves by putting the cross in his hands. Christ paid a ransom to his Father when he offered himself to God by the eternal Spirit. Through the eternal Spirit, the Father gives eternal redemption to those who trust in Christ's blood. As Christ offered himself to the Father through the Spirit, so you must come by the Spirit through Christ to the Father.